If you have ever tried to make a 3D pixel art game, you will have surely come across the channel Tessellator. His videos on the topic are, simply put, amazing and show just how much is possible with modern engines. Replicating this kind of game style is not that hard. You only need to search on YouTube for a tutorial and figure some of the finer details out yourself. However, there's always been one aspect of these kind of games that barely had any coverage: the terrain creation. Most devs create their terrain by either going into a 3D modeling software of their choice, or using a built-in terrain authoring tool in their engine. These options are lacking, to say the least, as most 3D pixel art games are trying to replicate a blocky, 2D look, which takes a lot of effort to try and get right with tools not designed for it. But what if there was a tool that was tailor-made for these kind of games? Well, even though he was not the first one to do it, if we go back and look at Tessellator's channel, we can see that he once made a video on a terrain tool he created using the marching squares algorithm. This terrain tool could quickly make blocky, 2D-like terrain on the fly without having to go back and forth between 3D modeling software. I got inspired by his video, and for the past 3 months I've been working to create a similar plugin for Godot. Today, version 1.0 is ready, and with this video I want to introduce the plugin's features as well as open it up to the public for you all to use. This is Yūgen's terrain authoring toolkit. If you want to start making new terrain with the plugin, you simply need to add a child node, search for marching squares terrain, and add it to the scene. The first thing you'll notice after adding the terrain to the scene and clicking it is that to the left there's a lot of icons. These icons are all the different tools in the kit. But first we actually need to add some terrain. This plugin uses chunks, and if you press this box looking icon, you can actually start adding chunks to the world. The first chunk you add can be anywhere in the world. However, once you've placed a chunk, you can only add chunks to the neighboring tiles. The first tool we can use to shape our terrain is the simple brush tool. This tool allows us to elevate or lower the terrain. As you may have noticed, the bottom panel also has a lot of options. Disabling the fall off check marks ensures that all the selected cells on the terrain get elevated or lowered to the same height. Enabling the flatten checkbox flattens all the terrain to the first selected cell's height. The size simply controls the size of the brush. However, size can also be set by holding Shift and scrolling up or down. Brush type controls the shape of the brush, and right now you can choose between round and square. The next tool we can use is the level tool, which sets all the selected cells to a predetermined height. Right now the height is set to 0, and you can change it by either adjusting the slider or typing in a new number. Alternatively, you can hold down Ctrl and click anywhere on the terrain to set the current height to the height of the selected terrain. The third tool we can use is the smooth tool, which averages out the terrain based on the neighboring cells' height. The smoothing strength can be controlled with this slider. The fourth tool we can use is the bridge tool, which allows you to create a smooth bridge between 2 points. The smoothness of the bridge can be controlled with the ease value. If we zoom in on the terrain, we can see that there's actually a lot of grass sprites, spawned via Multi-Mesh Instance 3D. This fifth tool allows us to control the area in which these grass sprites are spawned. Enabling the Mask Mode checkbox allows us to remove grass. Disabling the checkbox allows us to add the grass back again. The sixth tool is the Vertex Paint tool, which allows us to paint up to 15 textures on the terrain. The first 6 textures in the list spawn grass, the others do not. The last 16th texture in the list allows us to remove the terrain entirely. The tool with the wrench icon allows us to print debug information about selected cells. Right now the debug information includes the global position of each cell, its color ID, and their normal. The next tool are the chunk settings, and although chunk settings are mostly used for removing and spawning in new chunks, they also control how blocky the terrain is. Right now the terrain is set to polyhedron mode, which means that a lot of the terrain is blocky and only a short amount is round. However, if we change it to, for example, spherical, everything becomes round. The last tool are the terrain settings, which simply control global factors about the terrain, like the wall color, wall texture, and dimensions of the chunk. Further documentation on how some of the code is structured, as well as how the internal tool system works, can be found in the documentation folder in the add-on. Now that you know how the plugin works, here are some examples of what you can do with it. This is the end of the plugin introduction. I can't wait to see what you all make with it. You can download the project on my Github, which is linked in the description. The footage you are seeing in the background is the game I am working on right now, which is also using this plugin. I also study Japanology in uni and play the shamisen, a traditional Japanese instrument. If you'd like to talk about the plugin, shamisen or Japan in general, 3D pixel art or game dev, please feel free to join the Discord server, which is also linked below. I will be making videos about both game dev and shamisen in the future, so if any of these topics interest you, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching.